here we are. Another weekend. It's actually Sunday afternoon. Gonna try to put a few hours in on this. I've got yesterday went and helped Trent at the NorCal Series, the first NorCal Series Ultra 4 race of the year out at Prairie City. He did really well. He finished third, so we had a good day there. His boy Kevin also raced in the little 170 class, and he did good. Just learning how to drive and gaining confidence, so that's good. But anyway, for this, I got this center section bolted down. Still have to do the wings here and do a little bit more cleanup on this weld. Then I want to start working on my secondary inner firewall panels. So there'll be another panel that comes out in between the side of the doghouse and out into the front, and then that's where the main dash center console area will attach and bolt into. But I need to get this intake tubing suspended and up where I want it. I'm going to put my air filter on so that I can have that in place so I can start working around it for the opposite side of the inner firewall panels. The idea is, because all the heat source and everything is immediately behind the doghouse here, the crossover tube is here, is to put another panel over here, particularly right here where my feet are, with a 1-inch gap, or as much of a gap as I can between this panel and the next panel, so that there's sort of a heat break there, so I can try to keep as much heat out as I can. So that's kind of what I'm going to do now. We'll just get started on the hanger for the intake tubing now and then go from there. All right, well, hey, good morning. I don't know where we left off. I don't know where we left off in the last video. It's been a while. But this is where we're at. The outer doghouse panels, which would be the secondary heat shield that I was talking about in previous videos. I've got the driver's side done. Working on the passenger side. You can see the hole right there in the doghouse. I was going to run the ducting for the intake and then the intake filter right here over the passenger footwell. I've decided it was just too intrusive on the inside, the cab portion, and decided I'm not going to do that. So despite the fact that I bought all the fittings and everything, and I had it all mocked up and in there, I decided to abandon that idea. So obviously I got to fill that hole in or cover it up. Turn the intake back around, and I've got the air filter here. In doing that, I now need to buy another throttle cable that's longer, because the throttle cable's got to come around the back of the engine and then over to here, because now the throttle body's in the front of the engine and on the opposite side. So not really that big of a deal. Got to spend a little more money, but anyway. So this is where I'm at. Since I've already done the driver's side, the passenger side's going quite a bit faster and easier because I'm already familiar with the process. So doghouse, primary heat shield, and then here's the outer. And the outer is spaced out three quarters of an inch to 1 inch. And what I've done to get the outer spacing is I've made, I don't know if you can see them, these custom spacers. They're aluminum spacers. So these I bought, these are 3/4 inch spacers I bought and I welded to this panel. So they kind of guide the bolts in, they space it out properly, and so they are being captured on the inside of the doghouse here with these nut certs. And so what that does is that sets my spacing, because I need to have an air gap between here and here. The inside of this is gonna have a heat shield or a blanket on it, or I can put it on this side. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but anyway. So then what I've done is I've welded flanges to the back of the floorboards, and that's where the bottom of this panel is gonna catch and bolt into. And then you'll see here in a minute, I'll put everything back together. You'll see how I capture this secondary panel that goes in here. And then there'll be a dash panel, which I've already mocked up in cardboard, but I'm gonna have to make some changes to. And then at the top, let me go over here and show you this. At the top, I have this piece right here that catches the secondary paneling and gives it structure up top, and it catches it. It's very rigid. I welded these tabs in. This is really easy to remove. It's just all bolt-in situation. So if I got to take it out, it's a mix of 3/8, 7/16, and 1/2-inch bolts. Everything is modular. Everything's removable. It's a little more complicated than I'd like it to be, but this is the best way I figured to build it. So what I've already done over here, now I got to do over there on the passenger side. So here we go. All right, now, so basically, I've got my panels. I've got these marks where I want to have the bolts. There's one here, and then one right up there. And then I've got my little dividers, or a compass, I don't know what you want to call it, but I just taped a pin so I can establish the height that I want for the bolt. And then I'll mark them. I'll hit them with my center punch, and then I'll drill through them. So that's going to locate everything. And I'll set my Rivnuts, and I'll screw them in. I'm going to start with this front panel first, and then work my way this way around the corner to the center console. So here we go. All right, so you can see these are the flanges that I welded to catch the bottom of the panels. You can see here, there's one over there. I've got my Rivnuts set in this first panel that I've already drilled. These are a little bit high, so I'm gonna change my dividers to mark them down a little bit lower next time. And you can see these spacers. And you can see that I chamfered this edge, so it just kind of catches the bolt when I go to thread it in and lines it up. So just kind of guides the bolt. I did the same thing on the other side, except for I didn't have these yet, so I machined them out of 1-inch solid stock and then welded them in. So anyway, here we go. All right, so we got the panel in. Like I said, we're gonna have to reconfigure this panel here, which is fine, no big deal. I still need to do my fasteners here and here, but I'm gonna wait until I get this steel structure made in here. I've already made a template out of cardboard, and it's gonna go in kind of right in there. Very similar to the way I did the other one on the driver's side, except for not as complicated because this doesn't have as many bends in it. So do the same thing, speed holes on the top to lighten it up. And we cut it out at 1/8 inch, weld some tabs in here front and back, and bolt it up. All right, here we go. Okay, so I've got this little piece cut. And go in there right like that. Now I just gotta weld a flange to the bottom of it. So I have this other piece cut at a 90-degree angle. So we'll do that real quick. I'll be right back. All right, so I got that little flange welded up. We'll wait till this cools. I left a gap here because of the jog in the panels. They kind of jog in and out. You'll see when I get back over there. Let this thing cool off for a sec. Here we go. So we got this bracket in there, and we got the step right in here because of this overlap, so there's not as much gap. I wish I had done that over there, but I didn't. But since this one's the second one, I'm learning. And so this is where we're gonna have this top piece. So I just gotta take these tabs that I made. I'm gonna get the TIG welder out so I'm not throwing spatter everywhere, and TIG weld these in real quick. And then what I'll do is mark these and drill them, and then I'll weld nuts underneath this bracket so I don't need to worry about getting in underneath there with a wrench. Okay, here we are. Next day, good morning. Last night before I quit, I started messing with this tilt steering wheel column, figuring out distances where I want to mount the steering wheel itself, how I want to orient this column to have the tilt and the adjustment that I want. And I thought I was going to be able to get away with having the pivot bolt back in here more. So in other words, rotating the column down more. But it turned out it was rotated down way too much. So right about here is where I want it. The problem is it's way over, and it's right up against this panel. So there's a couple of things I'm gonna need to do. First off, I'm gonna have to replace these bolts with button head bolts so it's not sticking out so far. And I have a feeling I'm not gonna be able to get this panel out with this tilt column adjusted, all the way over here. So I might have to put a relief in this panel so it clears this area so that I can get it out, because I need to be able to take this panel out. This is not going to be removable. It's permanently welded in here unless I make some other modifications to it. So yeah, so trying to figure out how I want to do that. There's a couple things I could do. I could maybe, I don't know. Anyway, so the other thing is I got the steering shaft, and it's splined on both ends because I want to make it all modular to where I can take everything apart, work on stuff. This steering shaft only comes in it comes in a 12 inch, 24 inch, 36 inch, and so on. And over here on this side of the shaft, of course, this is going to get cut off, and that's where my steering wheel quick release will mount. And then on this side,
is where the orbital will be. And I need this shaft itself to be double splined, so I know I'm going to have to cut this down, sleeve it, and re-weld it. And then my orbital will live somewhere in here. So the first thing I think I'm going to try to tackle this morning is figuring out how I'm going to use this system and still be able to remove this panel. I don't know if it's possible. I think there's a way if I just relieve this area in the panel and maybe weld something in to where it's not broke outward, it's broke inward. But I still need it to catch the top up here. So the good thing is there's no fasteners up here. So all the fasteners are down here on this section of this panel. There's one right here, but anyway. Oh, and on the passenger side, I got that all done yesterday. That's all in. Let me show you that. Haven't cleaned up my tools yet, but here's the passenger side. This is all done. Got this upper brace done. All my nut certs are in there. This is all bolted in and good to go. So I figure I'll tackle the steering wheel. Then I'll start working on this. Then I have a dash plate or panel that'll go over here. It's probably going to be in a couple different sections. And right in here, I want to build a box for all my electronics, my ECU, switch pros controller. There will be a fuse / relay box in here. All that stuff is going to live right in here. So I want to make a box that I can seal from weather and put it right here. I was thinking last night how I'm going to route the wires, and I think due to the fact that I need to be able to remove these, I'll probably route the wires underneath here. So I'll cut a relief in this panel so I can make the wires go over this way and then down behind what's going to be the dash panel where all the controls, the battery switch and stuff is. And as far as getting the harness over to the engine, probably either through here and around underneath this tube, or probably through one of these panels and around over to that tube. That'll probably make it easier. Probably cut a relief in one of these panels. I'm just trying to think ahead to where I can remove stuff without having to deal with the wiring harness being in the way. There's a give and take to everything. It's not going to be entirely convenient every time, but try to make it as convenient as possible. The other new addition is a cutting brake. I was debating on whether or not to run a cutting brake, but been convinced that it'd be handy to have. So trying to figure out where I want to mount it, and it's probably going to live somewhere in here, like so. Probably like right in there. As long as I can reach it with my harnesses on from my seat and it's not interfering with the passenger's legs, which right there it's not, I think it'll be good. It's just positioning it to where it's back far enough to where I can push it in both directions, and it's not in the way of the panels or anything to be able to remove them. So thinking about that, trying to figure out how and where I want to put it. So anyway, that's what we got going on this morning. We'll get to work. All right, so I was surprised, but I was able to get that panel out, no problem. So I don't even think I'm going to need to buy button head screws for these. So now go ahead and put the steering shafts back in and figure out where and how I'm going to mount the orbital. All right, so if you can picture this, I've got this tube here. I just went ahead and cut and notched It's going to run across here, and that's what's going to take the Orbital, if I can do this with one hand, go something like that. And if you can picture the Orbital being there, there's my steering shaft. Oh, shit's already falling apart. Just got it hanging there. And then power steering reservoir be somewhere right here. And I'll have to make a bracket for it. It came with this bracket and band clamp. So I'll make a bracket that hangs off the bottom of this tube. Very important that the vent and everything is below the hood line. And then you can see from the hose fittings on the side, it's got a straight shot from there down to the fittings on the fitting on the pump. So yeah, that's your big outfitting, big infitting, big feed line comes into there. So be a 90 degree and then up to that into another 90 degrees. So it'll be a really short run. And these are plenty big. I think these are -12 or -10. And so anyway, that's the plan. I'll get these tubes cleaned up. I'm going to tack this tube on here and tack the Orbital mount and see what we can get done. Okay, well, I've got this mocked up. You can see I had to splice this shaft here, so I've got an internal sleeve in there. I'll drill it, plug weld it, and then weld this seam. I haven't trimmed this out yet. I'm kind of concerned about the placement of this. I may go down with it, rotate it downward, because I'm worried about the fittings. There's going to be 4 fittings on here, 90 degree fittings that go this direction. I just want to make sure that I have enough clearance here so that those fittings clear the hood. There's not a whole lot of space in here. So that's probably about 2 1/4 inch to the bottom of that. So I need to make sure I have enough clearance to where those aren't trying to intrude in the hood line. So that's why I say I might have to break these tacks on this and just rotate this downward a little bit, which is not a big deal. The only problem is because of the location, I can only rotate it down so much, because then this universal joint right here will hit this tube. So it also occurred to me that I made this little cover for this section right here. So I'm going to have to probably modify it, obviously. Because this used to go right in here. So I'll have to modify it and make it a 2-part. So I come in from the bottom and then down from the top and then cut a hole in it for the steering shaft. But that's not a big deal. What else? This right here. So here's my reservoir. Just trying to make everything clear and make it work, but this will go right in here. Again, got to make sure that the vent, so this will go right in here. Again, got to make sure the vent on the cap is below the hood line. And then, like I said, with this sitting here, you can see how close it is to the Orbital. Just making sure that I can route the hoses around it. I don't think that'll be a problem. They'll probably have to, 2 will probably have to go behind it and around, and then 2 will have to go in front of it and around. That'll probably be the easiest way to do it. Over here I have the shock. This is the upper mount for the shock. I'm gonna have the shock, the spring, everything right in there. So that's gonna take up quite a bit of space in there. So before I, fully weld anything in, I'll put the shock back in there and make sure I've got enough room to clear everything. So, but yeah, I think this will probably work. Again, like I said, before I weld any of this in permanently, I'm gonna get these fittings and make sure I have clearance underneath here, and that we're good to go. All right.